According to the Washington Post, Darren Wilson's first job was on a troubled police force disbanded by authorities. The small city of Jennings, Missouri had a police department so troubled and with so much tension between white officers and black residents that the city council finally decided to disband it. Everyone in the Jennings Police Department was fired. New officers were brought in to create a credible department from scratch. That was 3 years ago. One of the officers who worked in that department and lost his job, along with everyone else, was a young man named Darren Wilson. Some of the Jennings officers reapplied for their jobs, but Wilson got a job in the police department in the nearby city of Ferguson. On August 9th, Wilson, who was white, killed unarmed black teenager Michael Brown after Brown and his friend had been walking down the middle of the street. Wilson, 28, has completely vanished from public view. He has not explained publicly what happened in that brief lethal encounter either. His lawyer did not answer phone calls or emails. The police union is mum. His ex-wife is publicly silent. His friends aren't speaking out. His mother is long deceased, and there is no sign of his father or either of his stepfathers. Wilson is under the protection of the Ferguson Police Department, which has chosen from the beginning of this case to opt for obscurity rather than transparency. The department did not reveal Wilson's identity for nearly a week after the fatal shooting of Brown, and by that time his social media accounts had been suspended. But everyone leaves a record, and Darren Dean Wilson is no exception. People who know him describe him as someone who grew up in a home marked by multiple divorces and tangles with the law. His mother died when he was in high school. A friend said a career in law enforcement offered him structure in what had been a chaotic life. What he found in Jennings, however, was a mainly white department mired in controversy and notorious for its fraught relationship with residents. It says, especially the African American majority. It was not an ideal place to learn how to police. Officials say Wilson kept a clean record without any disciplinary action. The job in Ferguson represented a step up and likely a significant salary increase. Wilson had some recent personal turmoil. Last year, he petitioned the court seeking a divorce from his wife, Ashley Nicole Wilson, and they formally split in November, records show. Wilson won a commendation this year after he subdued a man who was found to be involved in a drug transaction, and he was honored in a ceremony in the town council chambers. He seemed to be doing pretty well as an officer until shortly after noon on that Saturday when he passed two young black men walking down the middle of the street, put his police cruiser in reverse, and said something to them. Wilson was born in Texas in 1986 to Tanya and John Wilson, and he had a sister named Kara. His parents divorced in 1989 when he was 2 or 3 years old. His mother then married Tyler Harris, and they lived in Elgin, Texas for a time. Records show Tyler and Tanya Harris had a child together named Jared. The family later moved to the suburban Missouri town of St. Peters, where Wilson's mother again got divorced and married a man named Dan Durso, records indicate. Wilson attended St. Charles West High School in a predominantly white middle-class community west of the Missouri River. He played junior varsity hockey for the West Warriors, but wasn't a standout. There were problems at home. In 2001, when Wilson was a freshman in high school, his mother pleaded guilty to forgery and stealing. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison, although records suggest the court agreed to let her serve her sentence on probation. She died of natural causes in November of 2002 when Wilson was 16 years old. His stepfather, Tyler Harris, took over as his limited guardian, which ended when the boy turned 18. A family friend who spoke on the condition of anonymity out of fear of threats said that Wilson sought out a career in law enforcement as a way to create a solid foundation in his life that he had been missing. He had a rough upbringing and just wanted to help people, the friend said. In Wilson's childhood, there was no structure. And after going through the police academy, Wilson landed a job in 2009 as a rookie officer in Jennings, a small, struggling city of 14,000, where 89% of the residents were African American and poverty rates were high. At that time, the 45-employee police unit had 1 or 2 black members on the force, said Alan Sticknote, a white Jennings civil council member. Racial tension was endemic in Jennings, said Rodney Epps, an African-American city council member. You're dealing with white cops, and they don't know how to address black people, Epps said. The straw that broke the camel's back was that an officer shot at a female. She was stopped for a traffic violation. She had a child in the back of her car and was probably worried about getting locked up. And this officer chased her down Highway 70 past city limits and took a shot at her. Just ridiculous. Police faced a series of lawsuits for using unnecessary force, Sticknote said. One black resident, Cassandra Fuller, sued the department claiming a white Jennings police officer beat her in June 2009 on her own porch after she made a joke. A car had smashed into her van, which was parked in front of her home, and she called police. The responding officer had asked her to move the van. It don't run. You can take it home with you if you want, she answered. She said the officer became enraged, threw her off the porch, knocked her to the ground, and kicked her in the stomach. The department paid Fuller a confidential sum to settle the case, she said. It's like a horror story in my mind. I never thought a police officer would pull me off my porch and beat me to the ground for just laughing, Fuller said in an interview. The Jennings department also had a corruption problem. A joint federal and local investigation discovered that a lieutenant had been accepting federal funds for drunken driving checks that never happened. All the problems became too much for the city council to bear, and in March 2011, the council voted 6-1 to shut down the department and hire St. Louis County to run its police services, putting Lieutenant Jeff Fustine in charge as commander. Fustine, who overlapped for about 4 months with Wilson during a transitional period, described him as an average officer. My impression is he didn't go above and beyond, and he didn't get in any trouble, Fustine said. He said of the department during its difficult period, there was a disconnect between the community and the police department. There were just too many instances of police tactics which put the credibility of the police department in jeopardy. Complaints against officers. There was a communication breakdown between the police and the community, and there were allegations involving use of force that raised questions.